Good morning, Fremont family. My name is Dave Flores. Today's devotional is from Mark 10:46 through 52. I'll pause for a moment to let you read the verses before I continue. Today's gospel reading talks about a blind beggar named Bartimaeus, who happens to be sitting by the side of the road as Jesus is leaving Jericho. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, in Mark 10:47, Mark tells us, he began to shout out and say, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Now we may wonder why Bartimaeus didn't approach Jesus more politely. But if any of you have ever prayed for healing and not received it, you know that there's times when it just seems like we need to be persistent to get God's attention. Sometimes we have to be more persistent more than once. As today's text shows us, in verse 48, Mark says that many sternly ordered Bartimaeus to be quiet, but he cried out even more loudly, "Son of David, have mercy on me." The encouraging thing is, Jesus never discourages this. In fact, it's the loud shouting of Bartimaeus that gets his attention. When Jesus hears the beggar shouting, Mark says that Jesus stood still and said, "Call him here." When Bartimaeus went to Jesus, he threw his cloak aside. He was willing to toss aside perhaps the only thing he owned in order to seek Jesus. And when Jesus asked what he wanted, he simply said, "Rabbi, I want to see." Bartimaeus is a perfect example that through his hope, his persistence, his faith, he is healed. Though Bartimaeus' example, we learn that persistence is just one way in finding healing and freedom from the disabilities in our lives. When we call out to Jesus, Jesus hears us. And it's interesting to note what Jesus says to Bartimaeus. When he heals him, "Your faith has made you well." His persistence in seeking Jesus is rewarded. It is not his persistence, but his faith that has healed him. Jesus does not look at him and say, "Your doctrine has made you well," nor does he say, "Your good works have made you well." He says, "Your faith in Jesus has restored this man's sight." Rather than go out and see the world, Bartimaeus runs after Jesus. It is notable that he goes from being a beggar along the road to becoming a follower of Jesus. Jesus has a way of moving us off the sidelines. Christianity is not meant to be a spectator sport. We are meant to participate. This is why God has called us to belong to a congregation and not an audience. Perhaps the reason so many Christians are bored with their faith is because they are on the sidelines. They are not exercising their faith. They are content along the road watching others. That's how Bartimaeus' great story of faith ended, with him following Jesus from then on. His story tells us that it's just about meeting our needs according to our agenda. Rather, it's about being surrendered to Jesus completely as our all in all and following wherever he leads. As we look forward to this coming Sunday's message, may this devotional serve to prepare your heart and mind for God's spoken word. God bless, and have a great rest of the week.